Happy holidays.
Oh, they're just here. We just finished Halloween, and now what? We got Thanksgiving coming up, and then Christmas.
It's the most wonderful time of the year. Just stay sane and don't get sick like you.
I'm feeling better.
We got a good one today on Rock and Roll Confessional. It features Marc Bonilla. He's a renowned guitarist, composer, and producer whose dynamic career spans decades across the worlds of rock, film, and television. He first gained recognition touring with Warner Brothers recording artist Toy Matinee, and later released 3 critically acclaimed instrumental guitar albums on Reprise Records, The Lead Ticket, American Matador, and Celluloid Debris, which is currently out. A versatile and sought-after collaborator, Bonilla has performed, recorded, and produced with an impressive roster of artists, including Asia, Ronnie Montrose, Glenn Hughes, Slash, Little Richard, Peter Frampton, Rob Halford, Paul Rodgers, Ambrosia, Don Felder, Robby Krieger of The Doors, and Sammy Hagar, just to name a few.
In the realm of film and television, Marc has composed and performed on scores for numerous major motion pictures such as The Bourne Legacy, Iron Man 2, Green Lantern, The Scorpion King, Falling Down, Waterworld, The Replacement, Spiderman 2, Bruce Almighty ER, and many, many more. He's collaborated with top Hollywood composers, including James Newton Howard, John Debney, Joel McNeely, and Snuffy Walden, earning an Emmy nomination in 2001 for his work on David Milch's Big Apple.
And the other thing about Marc Bonilla is if you ever attended or listened to a Mark and Brian Christmas show, he was pretty much the one running and assembling the band. So without further ado, here we go with our good friend, Marc Bonilla.
Aaron's kicking butt, man. I love the fact that Aaron is doing so well.
I know, I'm amazed.
It's great.
Who's your team?
Raiders.
Sorry.
So we'll stop right there.
Sorry.
No quarterback.
Where do they play now? What country are they playing now?
I'm not sure, but I'm not sure who they're losing to on Sunday. I can't remember, but
yeah, they actually play somebody good on Sunday.
Yeah, they have no quarterback. They got Pete Carroll, and that's great. But
yeah, that's about
Gino is not. They need to lose all their games now, and then
get a new quarterback,
decent draft choice next year. They've got a good running back. If we can hold on to Max Crosby, we're good there. Yeah. But damn,
it's tough.
So.
CW doesn't do sports. So.
I can see by his non-participation and quickly mentioning baseball.
I know a little bit. I know what sports is. Let's just say that in a general sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You've actually been to a baseball game with me, you and your wife. Yeah.
Yeah.
We went to the Angels World Series.
Did
we went to, yeah.
Oh, that was.
I'm glad you enjoyed it as much as I did, Reeds. Thanks.
Oh, yeah. Well, no, I was a World Series.
Yeah, you're paying attention to the game, I guess.
Yes, indeed. All right, let's get this going.
Can I get your level up a little bit, Rita? It's hard to hear you.
Hard to hear me. Is that better?
There you go.
Yeah, just speak right directly into the microphone.
Are you new to this, Rita? Speaking into a microphone?
Kind of. I don't even know. This is going to go great. Hey, welcome to Rock and Roll Confessional. Really excited today because we have our special guest, Marc Bonilla. Marc Bonilla is more than just this great guitarist. He's a composer. He's an orchestrator. He's a lyricist. He's a singer. He does it all. And we got to know him really well through the Marc and Brian radio program because anytime there was like a Christmas show, hey, Marc Bonilla, what are you doing?
Mm-hmm. At 5 a.m, so I had no resistance. Yeah.
What else would you be doing at 5 a.m.?
Sleeping.
Yeah.
Come on.
Well, they would always wake me up at 5 a.m. to ask me if I would, these questions because I'm going, yeah. Only, I was answering as far as, I'm here. But they were taking that as, no, you already answered that question. Goodbye. So they knew, what they were doing.
I was always amazed, Marc, because putting together a Christmas show and then getting all these bands together, you were the conductor basically. So you had to break down music sheets for everybody that was playing on the bill.
Yeah.
I mean, that's intense work.
It is, but I'll never forget the first time I did the show. The first charge and why I loved doing it was David Gates, right, from Bread, and I call him up because we had to find out what he wanted to do, and I call him up and I get his wife on the phone, and his wife, I say, "Is David there?" This is Marc Bonilla from Killis, and she goes, "Oh no, he's out fixing the windmill." He was on a ranch, right? He's out there like hands-on rancher, right? He's fixing the windmill. He'll be back in a half hour. I haven't called. Sure enough, he calls me, and he's going, "Well, Mark, I don't know quite what." He was sweet, man. I don't know quite what to do. How about if I sing you some stuff? And I went, "Sure, yeah." So he's serenading me all of the hits from Bread over the phone. I'm going, "Okay, this is a good gig. This is good. This is great. And the funny thing about that was, when we got to the show, that rehearsal, we were rehearsing at the Palladium those days, and the band was like Greg Bissonette, Lukather, Lee Sklar, Steve Percarl, like all the hacks.
Yeah.
And he said I guess David had brought in a tune that he wrote for James Taylor, and he didn't know that Lee was James Taylor's bass player. So he turns to Lee and he goes, "Hey Lee, can you give me like a bass thing, like like the bassist in James Taylor?" We're all kind of like waiting for Lee to drop the other shoe, and Lee goes, "Let me see what I can do. I can't promise anything." Right? So
oh my God,
we launched the song, and like 2 measures in, David stops and he goes, "That's perfect. That's amazing." And he goes, and Luke says, "Yeah, that's because he's the bass player of James Taylor, David." And it just he just completely collapsed in embarrassment, and for the rest of the show and the next day, all he did was apologize to Lee. "I'm so sorry. I feel like such an idiot." But it was just, those are the, these moments that happen throughout the years that made getting up that early worth it.
And Lee's such a cool guy. He could care less. I mean,
no, of course
he's
not.
Mr. Chill, so.
Totally. But he saw the humor in all of it, and he ran with it, and that's the thing. So we were all waiting for him just to say, but he didn't, Lee, so, but that's Lee,
One of the first projects, I guess, that we got to know you with was through Toy Matinee. Now, you didn't play on the record, but you were a significant part of that band. What was that like? Because that album was so good, and I don't think enough people realized how good it was.
Yeah, the production on it was so great. It was Bill Bottrell, and then you had Pat Leonard and Kevin Gilbert, were the 2 songwriters and creators. I met Kevin up north on a Keith Emerson session. That was when I first met Keith as well. He walked into a club, and I saw him standing in the back, and I was up with this band playing just loud, and we were in a bar, and he comes up after the break and introduces himself. This is a long story short, but he was doing a project with Kevin Gilbert, and that's where I met Kevin. And Kevin and I locked immediately, and Kevin didn't know who I was at all. So Keith brings me in and goes like, "Who's this guy?" And, "Well, all right, we'll sit down. Let me see what you got." And the first idea I had on guitar, he went, "Okay, do that right again, right away, exactly like that immediately." And he hits record. He goes, "That's perfect. That's exactly what I was hearing." So that was the moment that we started our relationship. I mean, we have basically had the same vinyl collection from the Monkees to the Gentle Giant. It was, and everybody in between. And we had long conversations when he went back to LA, and he said, "Look, I'm starting this band, we're going to go out and do this thing called Toy Matinee." And I had already asked him if he would produce my first solo album, Doubly Ticket. So I went down to LA. I was living up in the Bay Area, San Francisco Bay Area at the time. I went down there and crashed at his pad for like a summer, and we did that. And then at the end of that, he asked me to join the band, the touring band. And so we went out as a duo to Japan, just as a duo. And when we got back from that, we added Spencer Campbell on bass and went out and did a radio tour, a national radio tour, came back and added Toss Panos on drums and Sheryl Crow. And then went out as a band, a proper band. But there were some issues, some politics involved with things where that got cut very short, as far as the touring went. But Jethro Tull wanted us. They heard us and they wanted us on their world tour, opening up.
Wow.
That got the kibosh put on it for reasons I don't want to go into. But the band was such a great band, and the expertise was great. I always felt bad because a lot of times I'd get lumped into the Toy Matinee guitarist. So I was the guitarist for Toy Matinee, and it was Tim Pierce who did all of that wonderful guitar work on the studio album. And I don't know if he ever. I get the feeling maybe it was just me that he thought maybe I was trying to step in and take credit for his work, and I never did. I was always really quick to point out that that was Tim on the album. I was only in the touring band, So, but yeah, it was a phenomenal band, great compositions, and Mark and Brian were the main champions of that, as far as getting us launched for that.
They loved that album and the music, and especially you, man. I mean, you were just so cool with them and everything you did. Again, going back to not only the Christmas shows, but just showing up in the studio and doing what you can, giving them what you can. It was like an amazing time.
It was a mutual exchange. I mean, and that's the thing is we all understood how it worked, and as far as the comic pacing, all of those things, we just all kind of had that instinct already. So it worked better than a lot of times other band members that don't really have the rhythm thing down. And it's all rhythm and it's all anticipation, callbacks, all that stuff. I grew up, I had plenty of my friends were comedians. So I in my family, it was all about comedy. Everything was comedy. So we were always around it. We'd always wisecracking all of our family reunions, so it was just an innate thing that both Kevin and I had, so it was nice. So when you had somebody like Mark and Brian who came from similar stock, it was a good combination of elements, and it always worked well, and always had fun on their show.
Did you grow up in the Bay Area?
Yeah, I grew up in Walnut Creek, California.
So how did San Francisco, let's go with San Francisco, how did the San Francisco scene affect you and your music? Because, I mean, you don't have a lot of psychedelic music, which is where you kind of grew up in the 60s and 70s up there.
Well, it's interesting because you may not be manifest in your music, but the aromas and the essences of it are, because they're still filtered through your mental thumbprint. In other words, I grew up on Hendrix, and the people have to understand, like with Hendrix, because there's a lot of guitar players now will listen to Jim because, yeah, he's good. And no, you don't understand. Hendrix was like a meteor. If you were standing on the beach and you saw that meteor coming in and you saw it hit and you saw that massive splash that happened from that meteor, now all of those rings of the splash are going to head out to the shores around the world, right? And the more time passes, those ripples get smaller and smaller till it finally hits the beach over on Bali somewhere, and it's just a ripple. But you have to understand that there was nothing up until that point that sounded like that. Same with the Beatles. Sound like anybody that came along before that. So it was a sociology kind of a thing. It was one of those things where you have to know what preceded it to know what impact it had. That ocean was flat. And this meteor comes in, and if you weren't there to witness the initial splash, you don't know what the impact was. So all of those guitar players, and you can do this with 2001: A Space Odyssey. It was amazing at the time, still is, by the way. But all of those movies that took so much from them but made their own thing out of it, when people from successive generations see that, they go, wow, yeah, 2001, it's okay, but Blade Runner and all that, yeah, they all took that from Blade Runner. They all took that from 2001. So many guitar players took that from Hendrix. So you may not know the direct effect of that and other psychedelia music, but it does filter through your playing, in certain ways. So growing up there was great because we had a lot of bands that were starting on they didn't quite have their footing in San Francisco, but they would audition clubs and that such in Berkeley, in Walnut Creek, Concord, those areas like that. And that's where we got to know a lot of those guys growing up. Y&T, Eddie Money, Huey Lewis and the News, Montrose, Sammy Hagar, all those Bay Area guys, we all kind of came up at the same time. And so there was a lot of cross-pollination going on at the studios and at clubs, opening for certain people. And so we all kind of supported each other growing up. So it was a great place for inspiration and for input, you know.
Listening to you, you could have been a radio announcer. I mean, you have an incredible voice.
I do voiceover work, so yeah, I've done that. Well, we did host the Mark and Brian show for 4 hours. one day.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah, but
so I mean, obviously, you could have been in radio. You had a great voice and stuff, but fortunately, you chose music instead. What were your influences? Now, did your dad play guitar?
Well, my dad did. My dad was an artist. My mom was a closet poet, and I didn't realize this till after she passed at 98, and I was cleaning out their house, and I found all this poetry that she had written, and it was amazing. It was like, Mom, you know, why were you hiding this stuff? But she kind of got her artistic expressions out through my father, because my father, that's what he did, you know, for a living. So, and of course, if you have one art can beget another art. That's why a lot of writers listen to music to perpetuate them, and, you know, vice versa. So we would do folk song nights a lot of the times. My mom had an auto harp, my dad had a guitar. My brother was a drummer, who was Tom. He was 10 years older than me. And across the street, the whole neighborhood were musical. I mean, we had people next door that played accordion and violin across the street, trumpet, you know, so we would get together for like neighborhood jam sessions. So the music was always important in our upbringing. And so my dad started to answer your question, CW. My dad took guitar lessons, started taking guitar lessons. And I had this little Wyatt Earp guitar. It was like a 4-string, you know, had like Wyatt Earp, you know, on the side. And, you know, the action was about 6 miles to the fretboard, but it didn't matter.
Was it plastic strings?
Yeah. So he's in there struggling to play. I don't know if it was 5'2", whatever it was. And I'm sitting at the door. I'm sitting at the bedroom door listening to him. And he comes out and I go, Daddy, is this what you were trying to do? And I'm playing the melody. And he goes, yeah, that's what I was trying to do. I think the wrong guy's taking lessons. And we couldn't afford 2 people taking. So he says, you want to take lessons? And I said, sure. You know, so I ended up taking lessons with Bill Tapia, who was in Charlie Barnett's band. He was a great ukulelist and jazz guitarist. And I remember him telling me, you know, he says, look, I'm going to teach you, but right now you got to decide, you know, you're holding that thing left-handed. You realize that in the future, you're going to have problems with that, trying to find guitars and all of that stuff. Just warning you now. So make your mind up now before I start teaching you. And I said, well, there's nothing to think about. This is the way I play, you know, left-handed. So, so I went from there, you know, as far as that. And, of course, my parents then were completely supportive, you know, all the way down the line. I mean, all the way till, you know, the end of their lives. They were still coming to shows when they were in their 80s, you know. And I remember one time at the Nokia Theater, there was a line of people going into the dressing room. And I thought, was it catering or what is it, you know? No, it was my folks. They had showed up, and all the players know them already from all the shows they've been to. So they were holding audience. They were holding court, and it was like he is Luke, and all these guys were just waiting to go say hi, you know. But that's where they adopted everybody. My in high school, my friends would come over to see if I was there. I was gone. This was like 3 p.m, right? And I come home at like 8 in the evening. They're at the dinner table with my folks. They already had dinner. They're all sitting. I said, what the fuck? You know, he goes, we came by in the afternoon. You weren't here. You know, and it's like, okay, hang out with the folks. That's good. But that's how they were. They were always involved, you know, with all of my friends. My dad said one time, you know, I thanked him for that stuff. And he goes, look, Mark, anybody that you think well enough to bring home has got to be good people, you know. And that was his credo. You know, and my mom's, you know, I was very, very fortunate as far as my upbringing. So,
wow,
that sounds perfect and great. What about schooling? Now, you took lessons, but I mean, to write composition, to write charts, that must have taken some schooling, I guess.
Well, I mean, I got C's in music in high school.
Really?
Yeah, no, I was very average because I didn't really care about that shit. I was out getting an education, out in the
Yeah.
class. But if you realize where this stuff comes from, and that's the thing is the music doesn't come from you, it comes through you. And when people start to think it comes from them, they have an issue. And that's where writer's block happens. That's where, not being able to produce happens. It's like going out in the desert with a canteen of water. Well, I've got it right here. This is mine. But that shit's going to go empty. But if you look at music as a river that runs alongside that desert, you can go over to your cup anytime you want and you dip from it and drink. You always know it's there. And that feeling of confidence, knowing it's always going to be there. I can tap on it anytime I want. I just hook the hose up to the aquifer and I'm good to go. Because anyone will tell you that the music, when they write their best, the biggest hit, oh shit, just came out, just flowed out. Well, that's a reason for it. You're not in there. You're not part of that conversation. It is whatever you want to call it, muses, or you want to call it the divine, whatever it is, God, any of that. You open yourself up for it. It's like unkinking your hose. You do that and the water shoots through. And when you start to think, I've never had writer's block, ever. I've written TV shows, everything. I've never not had an idea and knowing at the end of the week, I've got a blank slate now, but at the end of the week, I'm going to have a whole show written. I know it. Not because it's me, because I know where my river is. And the stuff it comes out. So I never take credit for that stuff. Writing all of that. Yeah, I had a little bit of music theory in college, not for a degree. I just wanted to know the machinations of what I needed to know what my language meant, as opposed to being taught Spanish and going there, but never knowing what am I saying in Spanish, So it's the same. It's like that. So I got a little bit of that, and then I was fortunate to take from three great guitar players, all jazz players. Was Bill Tapia, like I mentioned, George Barnes, who was an amazing jazz player from Chicago, and Warren Nunes, who was an incredible technician. And I learned a lot of stuff from there, but most of it was just trial and error, going in and seeing what works and what doesn't, and having enough confidence in your abilities to want to go and willingly make mistakes, because you're not going to learn anything from success. You're going to learn from failure. That's how you learn what not to do. But you need to have the courage to go in there and go, I'm going to go in here and commit fully. Half the shit, or maybe 3/4 of it, isn't going to work. But what I do find is going to work. It's like panning gold. Most of the shit in that pan is rocks. It's not diamonds or gold. So, but you're panning for that little nugget, then that little nugget will last you the rest of your life. And you put that in your pocket and you go along and you wait for the next one. A good example of that was we went to Germany with Keith Emerson. It was the Three Fates project. And Tadje Mikkelsen, who was the conductor, asked me to write a couple of classical pieces. Now, I've written stuff for symphony and that for like chase scenes and things like that. It was always being covered up by car wrecks and gunshots and stuff. But this was a standalone thing where it had to survive on its own or fall on its own. So I just started playing. I thought of an idea, like kind of what mood I want, but nothing else. And then stuff would start to come out. I just kept it on record. And then I went back, and at the end of like 2 days or whatever, I had a piece. And then I would go ahead and just go, what sounds good? It was all through flow. We get over to Munich, and the producer, whose name was Torsten Schreier, who was like the Rick Rubin of classical music over there. He was a massive producer. We were up mixing this one piece called The Morning Sun, and he goes, so where did you study? And I went, huh? And he goes, where did you study? He's German, right? He's very precise and talks like this. And I said, I didn't, you mean like formal education? He goes, yeah, what conservatory? And I go, no conservatory. And he starts to get a little bit annoyed. Right? He says, you're telling me that you haven't studied I said, no. And he goes, well, you studied Mahler. And I go, no, I actually don't listen to Mahler. I'm more of a Debussy, Ravel type of guy. He goes, and then he gets pissed. He goes, well, this sounds like it was written by Mahler. Like, how dare you write something like this and not have the credentials to back that? You can't do that kind of shit. Yeah, he wouldn't talk to me the rest of the day because it fucked with his paradigm so bad.
Yeah.
Like, no, you have to have experience in schooling and all these things. They go, I'm just a freaking guitar player from the Bay Area. That's all I am. But it showed me some. It was a backhanded compliment that according to him, I had written something of that high of quality that he thought for sure that I must have had all of this experience. No, I just called it up for wherever it comes from. It's just, you call in your muses, and it's like they're like firemen. They're up in the loft, right? And they're kicking time back. They're watching soap operas. They're eating their lunch. They're reading a magazine. All of a sudden, the fire alarm goes off. What do? Oh, drop down. They come down the pole, jump into their car, and go, where's the fire? Well, that's what this is. That's what doing this is. That's the fire alarm for your muses. And they go, he needs us down there. Here we go. Your job is to keep your fire truck tuned up so that whoever wants to drive it, it'll respond to you. And that's where the formal education comes in. How to write, those types of things that you school yourself on, But the initial, the bulk of it all comes from it's not even inspiration. It's just channeling. It's just channeling through. And anyone of any greatness will tell you that. Not that I'm putting myself in that category. I'm just, I know how it works. And it hasn't failed me after all this time. So I know that it works. It's personal experience. That's all.
What else do you channel?
What else do I channel? Advice. We kind of reflected my parents. My parents, my friends would come over for counsel, and my mom would sit with them because they couldn't talk to their own parents about something, whether it was sexual, whatever it was. My mom would listen and offer advice with no judgment at all, And so a lot of times she would straighten out the neighborhood kids on just looking at something differently, like from an adult point of view or a different point of view. And we've kind of done that. My wife Joey and I kind of do that with the neighborhood kids here. Growing up, the kids would come over because they couldn't talk about a certain thing, and we would sit on the couch with them and whatever, and they would come over here as their second home. A lot of times we had kids that had tumultuous, home life, and they would come over to escape, to hang out for the weekend. And I'm like, parents need where you are. Otherwise, this could look suspect, they wanted to come over for a safe place. And so, to your question, when they would ask me things, I would just start to relate things. I wasn't making anything up; it would just come out. I would actually enlighten myself on things. Like, I would do that during teaching too, where I would talk about something, and then I would have an idea about how to communicate something. And go, hey, shit, that's a good idea. I got to write that down, and I would write it down. Now, I don't take credit for it. Like I said, it came through me. Whoever the messenger was, my job was to just go, hey, that's a gold nugget. Let me put that over here in this pile. And that's it. So I don't take credit for any of that stuff. But you asking what else I channel, I think it's just opening yourself up to things, to the universe, as cosmic as that sounds. It really is the case. It really is, And I'm sure you both discovered that. You've both done things. You go, I can't believe. Or somebody comes on and goes, you said this thing to me one time. You went, I did? Yeah, it changed my life. Shit, okay. I don't even remember saying it because you didn't say it. Somebody else speaking through you.
Nice.
You've scored music for, I want to talk about like your music too, but you just made me think of this again. Because you do so much film work, what is it like? Because you're not receiving the instruction from the guides, you're receiving it from the producer or the director. How difficult is that to write music for, like, say, a 30-second car chase scene or just something intimate? Where do you draw that from?
Well, that's a wide range because it all depends on the director, how attuned to the music they are, if they know what they want. There's people that I've worked with, like Tony Yurkovich, who knew exactly what he wanted, and it was great because, we could dial it right in, and he was very explicit with his instructions as far as the kind of instrumentation I'd like, and then we worked it from there. And then you had directors and producers that didn't know what they wanted, but they knew when they heard it that that's what they liked. So sometimes it's a guessing game. But you'd still have to go with your when you'd watch something, they hand you a cue sheet. Your music editor hands you a cue sheet of all of the different places where they want music, and they put it as 1M1, 1M2. That's the first reel music, and then first cue. And they give you it's from this point. It's a time code from this time code to that time code. It's like a little stopwatch, from here to here. And they'll sometimes give you, we wanted, undulating, with a lot of percussion, whatever. So you may have a basic palette to draw from. Not always, though. But you still have to watch it and emotionally respond to it and go, okay, this is making me feel like this, or what does this need to, the music is an unspoken character in the film. A lot of, it has to function as a character, not as a manipulator, but as a character in the film. And so, speaking dialogue that isn't being spoken by the actors. And so what is that? A lot of times it could be irony. It could be other heady things that are going on, playing against things. Like a good example was if you watched Platoon, when you saw Willem Dafoe being shot down to his knees in that jungle, they were playing Barber's Adagio for strings, which was showing you, it was this beautiful, gorgeous, emotional string, piece that was showing you the tragedy of this, not the action of it, because that's what Oliver Stone wanted. He didn't want the action, dun, 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 dun. So you have to understand what's the point of the scene, and that'll give you a point as far as how to compose the music. A lot of times you want music just as what I call musical tofu, where it absorbs the flavor of the scene without trying to force the viewer into one emotion or another. The perfect example of that would be like American Beauty. Thomas Newman did some amazing stuff where it was this piano stuff and it was amazingly non-committal but beautiful. And it allowed the audience to feel what they wanted to feel over that. And that's a real art in doing that, is making the music a different thing. When you're making music for sound recordings, that's the star of the show. But when you're doing it as a team effort in a movie, you're not the star. You're painting, you're a team member, and you can't be doing fast riffs and things behind it unless that's what they call for. So it really depends on the mood, so many different variables of that. And then at the end, as you noted, it's always subject to committee. And that is the point where you get an executive who always thinks that, gee, they gave me an office, they gave me a desk, they gave me a secretary, and they gave me a budget and a way. Therefore, I must be imbued with musical insight. Good, I'll render my opinion to justify my work position. And it's like, no, you're an idiot. That's the reason you're sitting behind a desk and not behind a fucking guitar, is because you don't have that aptitude. But they don't know that, because people that are ignorant don't know they're ignorant. That's why we have ignorance. So you got guys coming in and giving notes that contrast each other. Like, this particular cue, same cue, one executive will say, needs more fire. The other guy goes, needs less fire. Okay, great. God bless Graham Yost, who was the producer of Justified. It was the show that Steve Porcaro and I worked on. He was a huge prog rock fan, huge Emerson fan. So already the fact that I was on it and Steve, he was so happy that we had two guys that, loved the music already. But he would always tell us, look, man, I know you're getting these notes from these executives. He said, don't worry about it. I'll run interference for them, okay? You guys, obviously from the reviews, you guys are doing nothing wrong. Don't fix what ain't broke. So you guys do what you do, and I'll run interference. You don't always get that, but he was one of those gems that just completely had this wonderful firewall between us and allowed us to do what we do and what worked emotionally with the music. So, again, it ranges from one thing to another. And a lot of times, I'll give you an example. The art of bullshit is, it's unmeasurable in the right places. I was doing a session for Joel McNeely on a movie called Terminal Velocity with Charlie Sheen. It was a skydiving movie, had Naskasa and Kinski. Anyway, and this was one of my first gigs, and they had the full symphony in there, right? And then me on the other side of the studio. So we're facing each other, and these studio cats, these Jada guys are going, okay, who the hell's this little upstart, And I learned all my parts, I had them all down. At the end of the session, or the end of the break before lunch, Joel comes up to me and goes, dude, I forgot, I'm freaked out. I forgot to write this cue for the skydiving scene where Charlie jumps out of the plane. He says, well, we're on break. Can you like get Neil Steubenhaus and John Robinson and write something just from rock stuff? I know you're good at that. Yeah, how long? You know, he goes, well, it needs to be like, a minute and a half, whatever it was. And so I said, okay, what's the scene? He goes, yeah, just, it'll be fine. Just rock. I need it. So everybody goes to lunch. I grab Neil and I grab John and I pin out this thing and we worked it through and then we recorded it, right? Just about the time for the guys to come back in from their lunch break. And then Joel goes, okay, can you sit with Darren? That was the director. Can you sit with him and go through it with him? And I'm like, I don't even know what the scene is, and he goes, you'll be fine. Yeah. Oh, okay. I'll be fine. So I'm sitting in the control room, watching the scene for the first time, just like him, listening to the music, hoping the music somehow matches, right? And start away. And my bullshit gear just went into full force, As soon as he jumps out of the plane, I go, okay, see, Darren, you see that wobble arm thing that I did there? That's the anti-gravity lift from that to give you that feeling of weightlessness. And I'm sitting here just reading, trying, going through. Now, you see that curve? That chord pulls to the left like that. It's, all the way down to the end where he drops it. See? And Darren goes, I love it. That's my favorite cue. And I'm like, fuck, but it was complete bullshit. And I'm sitting here, watching it. So, so to answer your question, it goes from that range all the way over to the other range. Sometimes you just swing it and you have to sell shit. You got to sell it, and it actually did work. It wasn't like I was, it worked, thank God, but it did work, But funny old world. Crazy.
I wanted to just read, Mark, from what you sent us. And by the way, for the listeners, we asked Mark to send us some information and, what he's been working on and things like that. I think we got about, 5 terabytes of emails of videos and paper. And not that I'm not grateful, don't get me wrong. I had just purchased, my computer had completely crashed. I just bought a new computer and I go and I download everything. And then I want to move it from the download file to the Marc Bonilla file. And I go to move it and it says it's going to take 24 hours to move everything over. I'm like, are you fucking kidding me?
I gave you a full movie as well of the Emerson.
Yes, you did.
Yes, you did.
Pull from it.
But I wanted to read off real quick some of the films that you've worked on. Bourne Legacy, Green Lantern, Iron Man 2, Scorpion King, Spider-Man 2, Green Hornet, Megamind, B-Movie, Over the Hedge, Ice Age, Monsters, Inc., Forrest Gump, Total Recall, Fright Night, Gremlins 2, Toy Story 2, Green Mile. I mean, dude.
Do you have anything remarkable? I mean, anything that you're,
Yeah. I mean, that's incredible. And so my question to you is, if there had to be one thing, what would you be in a band? Would you be working on film or television? Would you be working at IHOP? What would be like IHOP's it? Probably get the employee discount.
It's worth it, pal. But go ahead.
No, I'm just curious. What if you had to narrow it down? Is there one direction that you would like? This is what I want to do the rest of my life.
No, because it's like saying, is there one food you want to eat for the rest of your life? I know I love In-N-Out, but I don't want it every day. I love, my enchiladas verde with my corn cake and my refried beans and rice, but I don't want it every day. And so you have to understand that your brain is like a pie chart, right? And you want different fruit filling on all of those because it stimulates and renews your appetite. And so I've gotten so much out of each one of these areas that I've been blessed to be participating in, whether it's live performance, whether it's my own material, which was working with icons like Keith Emerson and Ronnie Montrose and Danny Serafine, all of those things, all the wonderful directors and film people I've worked with, all of those things. It's like a well-balanced meal. So there's no way that I would want to limit my intake on all that, because I think what that does is it cheats your potential. You need to be able to wade out, like Bowie says, wade out in the water far enough where your feet barely touch the sand. because that's a place where it's new and you don't quite have your sea legs yet, but you have to push yourself to see what you're capable of. If you don't, you're just running around a track like this all your life. I like running in a straight line because there's scenery passing constantly. I don't want the same clock and chair that go by when Jinx is chasing Pixie and Dixie down the house. I always wondered how many clocks they had in that house.
Oh,
God, there must be 15 clocks in that house. I don't need that. I need
those two mice were crazy.
They were. So, but going, so there wouldn't be one thing that I would choose the rest of my life. There's goals that I want to do. I want to write, I want to write a full symphony, like, the concerto, all of that. That's something I want to do. But I would want to do something after that, something different, because it's palate cleansing. And that way you refresh and you allow another part of you to recharge and become, receptive to whatever the gods of music want you to communicate. So no, there's no, it's like look at what Kubrick did. He directed Paths of Glory, he directed Lolita, he directed The Killing, he directed Eyes Wide Shut, Barry Lyndon, Full Metal Jacket. There was nothing that was comparable about any of those films as far as that goes. They were all completely different stuff, but they were quality because he did all that research and it became immersive and all of those things that he did. So it all depends on how much influence you have and, or what's coming in. So no, full balanced meal.
Cool.
I listened to most of the Dropbox material that you sent over. I didn't view the whole Keith Emerson.
That's long.
Yeah, I didn't view that yet, but I'm going to save that and watch that. But I was just so impressed with the musical diversity of all this stuff that you laid down. I mean, the first two tracks, I'm just going, my God, this is just so good. This is so good. Like all the way down to the last goodbye. I'm writing like check mark. So good, so good. So many different things. I mean, that rendition of A Wider Shade of Pale that you do with Dragon Choir is amazing. The Place to Hide was the first one. It was really exquisite for Keith Emerson. Just excellent. And I want to talk about some of your music now that people can go out and buy. And you've got a new album coming out finally. I mean, what else you been doing, man? We've been waiting for a new album. Celluloid Debris.
Oh, that's out.
It's out now.
Oh, yeah, it's been out for a while. Yeah.
Very good. So people can
have
get
stuff coming out, but with other artists. So
And there's another one that's called ctrl+z. Is that
ctrl+z? Yeah. That's a group of guys. I've worked with all of them. It's Thomas Lang on drums, who's a phenomenal A-list. These guys are the top. Rick Fiorabracci, which is a recent friendship with him. Phenomenal. We were out on a tour together and we just gravitated, and so decided to put the band together. Alex Makacek, who I've worked with before, phenomenal guitar player, and Jonathan Sindelman, keyboardist, who I've also worked with. And everybody in the band writes. So everybody has contributed their own styles, and everyone's a little bit different, but we're all still able to adapt that to what we're doing. And then all of the legacy bands that we've been in between the five of us is frightening. So we pull different things from all of those bands, and we also are doing film track music, like Blade Runner, like Mannix, like Perry Mason. These great songs that no band really plays. But the phenomenal amount of great composition that was done in the 60s and 70s with TV and shows. I also want to do a version of Severance, which is an amazing piano thing. So, it's a full-bodied kind of band, and the only time we can get together though is when everybody else is off touring, is back from touring. So we have 5 different contingent schedules to have to make happen. So we get together when we can. We have a new video that's out on the Drum Channel that is a full concert that we did last November that is now out. So I'm very proud of that band. They're all great, and like everybody, it's a full democracy. Nothing gets passed until everybody agrees on it. Which is something I really wanted, and I think they all did. As far as that goes, and everybody is respectful of each other. It's just a wonderful band and great people, and you need that. You can't have a good band if you don't have a good hang. You need to be able to hang with people before you can play with them, or else it shows on stage. Just does,
You have a couple of shows coming up too, don't you? November?
Yeah, I have with CTA and Danny Serafin down in Guatemala.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I don't think a lot of people are going to be commuting down there for that, but we are going to be hopefully playing at the Canyon Club soon for that. We're finishing up, just now finished, I think, the mixes for Derek Small's album, which he's releasing the first single on October 24th. So that's coming up soon.
Week from today, I think.
Yeah. And that was just an ultimate joy working, with that. Now, Derek's thing is he's been taken for granted by both David St. Hubbins and Nigel for so long that he's feeling the not wanting to be lukewarm anymore. He's going to be proactive, so he's turning the temperature towards hot, I think, on this album. And
Good.
It's great because the music is phenomenal. CJ Vanston is producing it and playing the keyboards. Toss Panos, my old buddy from Toy Matinee, is drumming. Derek playing bass. I'm doing the guitars. And, we have some guests that have come in to lend their hands and expertise to things. And it's a yuck fest all the way through. And that was a thing that Derek says he was missing on the last Spinal Tap thing was the humor involved. And so during the sessions, we don't have there's no, punches being pulled. As long as it's funny, everything's on the table, and I'm just being pulled in as a guitarist, but I have to resist the inclination to want to produce because that's not my role here. CJ is producing, right? But to CJ's credit, he always asks everybody for their ideas, so he's not threatened at all. He shouldn't be. So but I'm still sensitive about it. So at one point, there was a certain thing in a song that I felt like it was too crowded. The lyrics were too crowded. And so I called Harry and I said, "Look, man, I'm a little bit ill at ease bringing this up because I don't want to think that that CJ thinks that I'm trying to horn in on him. I'm not, I wouldn't do that. Besides, there's no reason to." And he goes, "Yeah, I get it." And so I said, "So could you bring it up?" I said, "Here's what it is." And he goes, "Yeah, I understand your point. I'll bring it up to him, right?" So I said, "Great, that'd be great." So studio's in, CJ's in, and Harry looks at me and he goes, "Hey, CJ, we were thinking about maybe, pulling the lyrics out a little bit and not being so verbose with them, doing that." And she goes, "Oh, okay." And he looks at me and goes, "So, Mark, what do you think?" And I couldn't help it. I went, "I don't like it. I don't like it." Derek just like this, and his shoulders just started like, "You motherfucker."
Oh my God.
But I didn't mean it like that, but it was like I couldn't resist that opportunity. It was perfect. I had to say that. Just for the effect, just for the comedic. But that's how the sessions were. They were like that all the way through. He's such a delight to work for. And his bass playing has improved so much over I forget that it's Derek playing. It's like, dude, you've really kicked it into high gear, So you'll see. All the songs are great. Everything is good. And he called me the other day and says, I don't think there's enough guitars on the album. And I went, guitars hate hearing that shit. They just hate it. So I had to put more guitars on.
You toured with him on his Small Change album. Did you also play on that album?
No, I didn't play on that album. I came in after the fact on it. I played on some Successive stuff that he did, but not that album. I just did the touring on that.
And then what about Back from the Dead? Were you a part of that?
Was that
2009 Spinal Tap?
Yeah. I was indirectly because Keith contributed. I think he did, was it Hellhole? What did he do? Heavy Duty? There was some tune that he did here and to put organ on. So I produced that session for him. So indirectly, yes, I was involved in that. But that was the extent of it at that point.
That was a really fun tour. I got to see that at the Wiltern. And That was really, I mean, when they came out with, I don't know, every band member playing bass for Big
Yeah.
Bottom,
Yeah.
it's like, and they had special surprise singer was
Billy
Idol.
Yeah.
And I love Billy, but boy, Billy could not somehow get the lyrics.
It's all right. But that's Spinal Tap.
It's
right?
Spinal Tap and it's rock and roll, and that's all exactly what it was.
That was the thing, is we had a built-in safeguard that when we fucked up, people thought it was part of the show. Right? As a matter of fact, Harry was telling me when they were on tour, Spinal Tap, the amp blew up at one point in Germany or somewhere, and Harry's going, amp blew up, and his road crew's going, yeah, sure did. And he's going, oh, the amp blew up, and it wasn't until somebody goes, oh, the amp blew up, shit. So they had to develop a safe word, so that they knew not bullshitting, it's whatever it was. I think the safe word was Janine. I don't remember, but anyway.
Oh, God.
I was going to say cucumber.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, of which there is on this new album there is a song called Courgette, which is a love song to his cucumber. By the way, on this new album.
Oh, that's great.
But but the music is phenomenal. Kip Lennon and Keith England did the vocal on it, and just amazing stuff they both came up with. So and obviously Derek sang as well. But it was just pleasurable. I think he wants to do more stuff even beyond this. I think it's gotten good to him, and like I said, his playing has gotten just great, and the compositions are phenomenal. CJ's production is as great as you would expect on it, So it was great. It was such a great experience, and continues to be.
Mark, you're such a fascinating person. We're just touching the surface here with all the stuff that you have, but you're just such an amazing person that I'm so glad that you found the time to do this, to chat and talk with us. But we have the bonus round of questions that we want to ask you to get to really know you.
All right. The Jeopardy music coming on soon?
Yeah, but you have to rewrite it for us if you don't mind.
I'll put it in minor key.
If you could do it and not publish it so that we actually have the rights to play it, I would really appreciate it. Just send that over to me, and maybe a different countdown song.
Like by the end of this questions, you'll have it done for us. Yeah. Right? I mean, that's the way you work.
Well, Kevin and I did that on the show, Mark and Brian show. We took lyrics. Remember, we took lyrics and music from people, and then we took a station break, and we sang the song after the station break. It was called "This One Goes to 11." Strangely, that we just talked about.
Yeah.
But yeah. So
that's right.
You can work under pressure.
Okay.
What was the first concert you went to?
Frank Zappa and the Mothers of Invention at the Berkeley Community Theater. Yeah, that didn't put an impression on me.
Wow.
Blow and Eddie. That was my initiation.
We had that Mark on about last year before he passed away.
Yeah.
Such a great guy.
And the best falsetto in rock. No one sang high, and I don't mean high like that, but I mean in a register like that and made it resonate like Mark Volman. There was no one that could do that like him.
What was the favorite concert you attended?
Favorite concert I attended? Well, there's a lot of them. I think there were two that stick out more than any of the other ones. One of them was the Mahavishnu Orchestra opening for Emerson, Lake and Palmer in Oakland Civic Auditorium. The reason is a big, huge Mahavishnu fan, but when no one knew who they were, and they came out, and here you got a guy that looks like he's Man from Glad, all in white, and with short hair, asking for silence at the beginning of the show, right? And people were screaming. All of a sudden, finally, he just waited until everyone shut up, finally. And all I could hear was the hiss of the amplifiers through the PA system. And I'm looking around going, this entire place is packed, and no one is making a sound. And then Billy Cobham goes up and bangs that gong, and they start this tune. They do this first two meetings of the spirit, and when they end, no one claps. That's how stunned they were. Wow. Everyone was looking with flytrap mouths. They were all like, what? And then 2, 3, 4, 5 people, 6 people, all of a sudden it went like wildfire through the crowd. I've never experienced it. See, I get chills thinking of that. No, I've never experienced that of an actual, we talk about it in hyperbole. Oh, the crowd was stunned. No, these people, including myself, stunned, could not believe what we just heard. And so that was one. Then we had, of course, the LP after that. The other one was Kansas, the Left Overture, because the band was in full swing. Everybody was on their high mark. And I remember at the end, again, theatrically, you had them ending magnum opus, and then they came back with Apart from Cheyenne anthem, which is just Rich Williams playing acoustic guitar, Robbie Steinhardt singing, and Steve Walsh doing this beautiful high falsetto part. And they're up there. Everything faded down to the three of them, and at the end of the section, it faded away, and immediately the lights came on, and it was a taped exit of the music from that point on, as if they were never there. It was unbelievable. It happened so quick. It was like, where did they go? Were they ever there? This was way before, holographic. It was just magical. It was just a magical thing. And that's what everything is in our lives. It's moments. George Carlin said, I think, we live 80 years and about 10 minutes of it is pure magic. And that's it. You remember, it's like songs. You remember moments in songs. Like I can tell you my favorite moment in any of my favorite songs, whether it's a bass line or something or a high note that somebody hits, like in Great Gig in the Sky when Claire Torrey hits this high note. There's this one goes, wah! I wait for that note. The rest of the song is great, but that note just ascends, right? And so, as with our music, all our lives are just these moments, these wonderful moments that happen and give us enough adrenaline and dopamine to get to the next vine, or use the next vine to get to that next wonderful tree, So in moments with concerts, a lot of times it's so many moments from so many different shows that were my favorite moments. And so I've just named a couple, but as you know, there's just so many of those, throughout your life.
You brought up Emerson, Lake and Palmer, and we didn't get on it, but real quick, how did you meet Keith Emerson and all the work for so many years you did, and beyond his passing, you've worked with his work?
Well, I told Keith, I said, do you remember where we met? And he goes, didn't we meet at the club? I said, no, I met you briefly on the 1984 Carnival 9 tour. I was in the front row of the Oakland Civic Auditorium. You jumped off the stage with your theremin during Tarkus, and you knocked me over on my ass.
Oh my
Bent
God.
over, picked me up. We both looked at each other like this, and then he ran off. So it was like,
wow.
It's been 30 years, fucker. And he goes, I don't remember. I've knocked over so many people on that stage. I don't know which. Yeah. So anyway. So that was the first time technically that we met. However, where we actually met, as I was saying before, I was playing in San Jose with a band called JC and the Twisters. We were a band that never rehearsed. We just went and took requests for things. But I was working at the time with my mentor, Ronnie Montrose, who was producing me. He was trying to get me out of these clubs, God bless him. And we were recording on his own nickel at the Music Annex with Roger Werstman, and I was working out tunes, and one of them was called White Noise. And I was playing this with the band. And at this pub in San Jose, and in walks this guy from the back, where the front doors were. It looked like Keith Emerson. I went, looks like Keith Emerson, all right. And he's standing in the back like this, just standing there studying like this. And at the end, it was the end of the set, and he came up. And it was like, I'm looking at him going, gee, it is Keith Emerson, and like, what? It was like when Henry Fonda comes out of the heat waves and Once Upon a Time in America with that harp, and you're seeing it kind of with the waves, and it's like, what are you doing here, And he goes, hello, I'm Keith. I said, yeah, no. And he goes,
You knocked me over, man.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Yeah, well, not anyway. Yeah. He goes, stand back.
Don't hit me.
So I said, what was that last tune you did? And I said, it was called White Noise. And he said, is that one of yours? I said, yeah. He says, you're going to record it? And I said, yeah, actually we are. He goes, do you mind if I play piano on it? And I looked at him and I went, And I just went, well, what have you done? Oh, like, you know, and he goes, without a beat, he goes, well, I was in a band called The Nice, and then I had a band called ELP. I mean, no, stop. I know who you, I have posters in my bedroom that are witness to things no one else has seen that have your name on them, you know. Come on. Yeah, you can play on it, you know.
Wow.
And the next question, I didn't realize, I wouldn't have thought of it, was, do you water ski? And I'm like, huh? I thought this was a trick question. I'm like, do I water ski? No. And he says, well, do you want to go? You know, I go, sure. You know, the next day we went water skiing, the Delta. And he's talking to me about working on this project with Kevin Gilbert, you know, and I've heard your name in the circles here. And would you like doing this? And so I said, yeah, you know, and so we got together and did this wonderful project, and I would keep meeting him. That's I thought was the end of it, but we kept running into each other. We ran into each other in Japan once, in different places, and then in 2006, he calls me out of the blue and says, "Hey, I'm going out on tour. Would you like to front the band and play guitar?" You know, and I said, "Yeah," you know,
Wow.
and we went out and played. And the thing was that during like the third or fourth show, the management came, and the manager came up to me and he goes, "What are you doing?" And I went, "What do you mean? What am I doing?" And he goes, "I've never seen Keith smile on stage before and having such a good time. You must be doing something. What is it?" And I go, "I'm not doing anything. I'm just letting him be who he is." And that's what it was, because in ELP, he had to carry so much of the harmonic weight, you know, and not discounting Carl Palmer and Greg Lake. They were amazing for what, you know, their roles were in ELP. But Keith was the one that had to do all of that heavy lifting of all of the, you know, the phenomenal stuff, all of the melodic stuff, and the major part of the writing. And he was always having to do these parts. With me, I was able to cop a lot of those parts on guitar, so he was able to comp and do other things and relax a little bit and have fun doing things. And we always gave each other permission to do whatever we wanted to do. And that was the best thing about it was, you know, I never said, no, you don't want to do that. No, they would go, let's try it. We'll know, and we'll know soon if it works or not. And that was always the main thing to settle was, instead of spending time and energy debating on whether that would be a good idea, let's do it, and we're going to know. That'll convince both of us, and we won't have an argument about it. And that's how it was. So he was free to be a fourth member of a band as opposed to a third member of a band. And that was a major thing for him because he could really get into comping and doing other things or letting me have. He had no problem. You know, he wanted to call the album Keith Emerson Band featuring Marc Bonilla. I said, you don't need to put that. I don't need that. And he goes, no, it's what's right. You need to be on here. You know, he was always out for like Danny Serafin, the same thing, always out for my best interest. We're never threatened by any of that stuff, and thought we knew together we made a greater combo as a four-piece and reorchestrated the music to reflect that. And so it was new to him. He was able to try different things, you know, especially when it came to new material. So, and that's what I think kept us together, is established a trust where he would trust me with those things, and he knew I had his back on all of it. And you know, especially when his hand started to collapse from focal dystonia, he felt terrible, and like he was letting his fans down, not being the same person he was at 22. And I said, dude, they're going to give you a pass for that. Let me play those parts, and you do this. And that's what we did, you know, and so that he was able to continue on. And because his compositional chops didn't take any hits, they were great all the way into the end. He was a modern day composer, just phenomenal to be around. And I learned so much from him, and was able to ascend so quickly in my knowledge of things just through experience and working and meeting people and traveling and all of those things that I would not have been able to do had he not come into my life. So, you know, and meeting one of your heroes, you know, it was, you know, my dad still couldn't get over it. He says, I can't believe I know you and all this stuff. He would say, the fact that you're working with all these guys that I knew you when, you know, when you're in 8th and 9th grade, you would listen to their songs, and now you're playing with them. I'm so proud of you for that. You know, it's just.
That's so cool. That's so cool. And, you know, one of the things that's interesting is I was look at his equipment. When you look at Emerson, Lake and Palmer, I'm like, I wouldn't mind being the drummer because all you got to do is carry the drums in, and usually nobody wants to be the drummer. But when you look at his I don't know what it's called. Is it a synthesizer? Is it?
Oh, it's the Moog modular system.
Right. And it's like this massive wall, and there's got to be 400 plugs coming out of it. And I'm like, where do you plug? How do you know what to do with this thing?
Well,
and how do you move it and not destroy the sound or anything else?
It would go out of tune a lot. It wasn't roadworthy. But the patches stayed in. So when they shipped it, once that got put in, that stayed in as far as that. He would repatch a couple of things, but for the bulk, that's how it was shipped. But the thing weighed a ton. You know, I had it over here in the studio when we were working. It was here in my studio.
Wow.
You know, and I'm sitting there going like, that's the iconic. And the best part of that was my friends, my musician friends would come over and they would do the total Hanna-Barbera double take with the xylophone. Dig-a-dig-a-dig. You know, they look like that, you know, and they go, is that? Yeah. No fucking way, you know. And of course you have to hit the thing. It goes dun 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 dun. The thing at the end of Carnival 9 that was still in there from the tours, and they would just be like, you know, like I would have to hand them a wet nap, you know, and they would want to take pictures of it like they were a celebrity or like fruit at its feet, you know. It was just hilarious to watch.
Do you have it?
No, do I have what?
Do you have his Moog? Do you have
No. That's it. That's in a place in back east called Emmy app, which is in a keyboard. They have all of his keyboards set up as they should in a museum.
Oh, cool.
And so it's there along with my son's illustration of Keith that he did because it was great. Nate grew up with all these guys, so he didn't know anybody from Adam. And so when Uncle Keith would come over, Nate's 7 years old, and Keith is sitting at the front piano playing like this. So. And Nate goes, Dad. And I go, what? He goes, he's good. I go, yeah, he's pretty good for an old man. You know? And Nate was learning, and so Keith would get him up on the bench, and he goes, well, listen, Nate, you know, when I was your age, I told my dad that I wanted to play. He said, work on your left hand. Your left hand is the important hand. So I'm going to show you some stuff. And he would sit there and show Nate how to do it. He would write things out for him. You know, I don't have any film of this because it was too just gobsmacked watching a hero of mine. If you had told me back in, you know, when I was in college, Keith is going to be teaching your son piano at some time. You know, it boggles the mind the way that the fire trails in your life circumnavigate and go in these weird places you would never have thought was going to happen, you know.
Wow.
It's
incredible.
So we worked together for so long, you know, and we're just a part of each other's lives. And it was an amazing relationship, just amazing. And his sense of humor was great. He never took himself seriously. And we were huge fans of Victor Borga, huge fans of Derek and Clive, huge fans of Dudley Moore, you know, and his jazz trio. I mean, people realize how amazing Dudley Moore's piano playing was. But we would play all of that stuff on the tour bus, you know, and it was great, you know, and so I miss him every day.
Yeah, you guys were very close. That's cool.
Yeah, that had to have been hard.
You got another question, Reeds?
I've got like a million questions. I got to listen to this guy all day, man. You know,
Go for it.
It's, you know,
We got a few minutes.
All right. What would you be doing if you weren't in a band?
What would I be doing if I wasn't in a band?
You don't know. Because you've been in a band pretty much your whole life.
I'd probably be film director or film cinematographer, something like that. You know, I have to be artistic or an art director. You know, I grew up with my dad being an artist, commercial artist, so I learned a lot of that stuff watching over his shoulder, you know, and I did a lot of work for him when he, you know, I was of age where I could manipulate all that stuff. And there was no Photoshop then. This was all on hands cutting, you know, with X-Acto blades and all of that stuff, you know, amberlith overlays and Letraset type and all of those things. But I learned my bones that way. And so all my albums that I've been involved with, I've designed them all because that's, I can do it, you know. And I always feel like I'm paying tribute to my dad. As a matter of fact, I have a new guitar that Yamaha's made for me. I don't have it here because it's being tweaked right now. But it's great because my dad got into abstract art for a little while. And during the course of that, he wanted to get a new paint palette, so he threw his old one in the trash. And my mom digs it out of the trash. Of course she did. And she goes, Paul, have you looked at this? And he goes, yeah, it's my old paint palette. He goes, no, look at it. Really look at it. And it was this amazing collage of paints that he just used arbitrarily. He says, this is one of your best works. I'm not throwing this away. And she took a picture of it and sent it to me. And I went, is this one of Dad's? No, he goes, that's his freaking paint palette. So I took a high-def picture of it, and that's the vinyl capping, the seal that's on my new guitar is his paint palette picture.
Oh my God.
And
Yeah,
That's awesome, man.
that's going to be, yeah.
it's it's great because it's also a testament to my mom as well, because she's the one that
Go with it, buddy. Go with
Hey,
it.
man, it's, you know,
She's
we would be
one that
doing the
would
same
give
thing.
him the arms and legs for his creativity and see art and things that he may have not seen or the rest of us didn't see. So it's a testament of both my mom and dad.
You know, they must
I
have
love
been
it.
wonderful people. I mean, because you are, you know, just so well rounded, and the stories of, you know, kids coming over and talking with them. I mean, you were very fortunate to have those kind of parents, and, you know, that
Yeah.
propelled you along. And
They were the parents that I think all your friends wanted to have and trusted that they could talk to and couldn't talk to their own parents about. I mean, how cool is that when you've got, who's got cool parents? Not most of us. So that's really beautiful.
Well, there were two things that defined my parents. I remember growing up. My dad came to me one time and said, "What's with this Hendrix guy that you are so obsessed with? I don't understand, because when I see footage of him, I see him lighting his guitar on fire, destroying it. You don't want to do that, do you? What is it about him?" I said, "Dad, there's so much more to him than that. I'll tell you what, I'm going to make you a cassette tape of my favorite songs that he did. And you listen to it." 2 weeks later, he came back and he said, "I've been listening to this." He says, "I know what you see in him now." But he took the time to want to know his son better and want to know why he was so obsessed with it. He says, "There must be something about him that I'm not getting." And he took the time to do that. And that spoke volumes. With my mom, we were at Long's Drugs shop. It was during the summer. We pulled up in the car. She was going in to get something, and the radio was on, and it was on FM, and it was I was listening to KSAN, which is San Francisco. And while and the windows are down because it's freaking hot, and there was no air conditioning. And she goes in, and on comes this tune by Funkadelic called Maggot Brain, which is this Hendrixy type of solo. This a 10-minute solo, total acid rock, and I was just rocking back like this, closing my eyes, turned the thing, cranked it, right? And during about halfway through, my mom opens the door and completely breaks the mood. And I went, "Mom, Mom, Mom," you know, and she goes, what, you know, and he goes, "Close it," you know, she gets in and was going to hit the side. "Don't touch it, don't touch it." She closes the door and she looks at me, she pulls her seat, goes like this. Now, both of us are sitting there listening to that as these people her age are walking by going, "What the fuck is that lady doing in the car listening to this music at 100 decibels with that hippie?"
Love
That's my mom.
Love it. Oh, man.
Again, didn't want to ruin the mood, you know, it's that kind of shit. But that's
No, it's
That's
what
how they were.
what it just, you know, it goes to who we are, you know, as individuals. And you have to look back at your parents and your environment and your surroundings and realize that they didn't know everything. At least my parents, they didn't know everything. And you know, I love them, and I love all the struggles that they went through, and it made me who I am.
And the thing is, I would see the way that they would treat their friends and how their friends were. And that was the goalposts for me. They were there 24/7 for anyone that needed them, for anything. They would look out for each other. If there needed to be a swing set that needed to be set up and welded, my friend Bill McGeehan, his friend, would come over and do it. If they needed a sign painted, my dad would. I mean, I would see how their friends were, and that was my template for the friends that I have to this day. And you set up that standard for yourself, as I did with my wife. You know, I've been married to Joey. This is like 43 years we've been together.
Congratulations.
Wow.
But it's because of I saw my parents work through things and do all that, and it was totally worth all the rupturing and regeneration that would go on in a relationship, you know, that the outside world oftentimes is responsible for. But the friends that I have, I made a choice a long time ago that I didn't want to be associated with anybody that I feel subtracted from when I leave their company. I want to feel added to when I leave. If I feel that I'm subtracted when I left, I don't need them. It's not helping me. So when you set that back yourself, you become a magnet. It's almost like you create a vacuum for that type of personnel and that type of relationship to come in and occupy. And I mean, the friends that I have, I'm so fucking blessed with the quality of friends that I have. And for whatever reason, I thank every day it comes 11/11, I thank God and all the rock people and everybody. I just thank you for being in my life. And like you said, Rita, making me who I am. Because we are a complete conglomerate of everything that's ever come through our lives. And we don't forget anything. I'm firmly convinced that we don't forget anything. We may have misplaced a memory here and there. But this became obvious when I went through all my parents' belongings. And I would find stuff that I hadn't seen in years. My dad's magnifying glass. God, I remember this now. And there's a scratch on the other side. Yes, there it is. This popcorn popper. Shit, I haven't popped popcorn in there since the 60s. I wonder if it still works. Now, I didn't forget that shit. It was in my memory. I just needed an access code to trigger it. So, and that's all it was the visual. Or it could be a song that all of a sudden you go, I know the lyrics to this. I haven't heard it since I was 6. I know the lyrics. I just needed a primer for that. So I don't think you forget anything. And I think all the influences in your family and your friends all contribute. And whether it's a conscious memory at the moment or something that's way back in the cellar on the last drawer to the left, it's part of you. And that's your whole being, your whole personality. So I'm lucky.
You are lucky because one thing is you're aware of it. You know, you're aware that you're lucky, and you're the type that always pays it forward and stuff like that. And you're just a remarkable human being. I wish I could know you better, you know, and this time was a wonderful tribute to you and all the work that you've done and continue to do. And just the fact that you're a great person too. I mean, makes all the difference in the world. I mean, you could be the most creative person in the world, but if you're an asshole, you're a fucking asshole, you know, and I still appreciate your music.
You want to name any names, Rita?
Nah, better not. I've gotten this far, you know. They know who they are, or maybe they don't.
I don't know. Yeah. There's some I've met that I'm like, they don't know what they're.
No fucking clue.
Yeah. Yeah, well, just be glad you're not them in that world, though. You know what I mean? It's they ultimately are going to be paying that price for that, and you know. So I've learned to try to let that shit. I try to learn a while back. My main problem is I feel what I have to let go of is I know what ought to be, and then that's a far cry from what is a lot of the time, and you have to let what ought to be just. Let it go. You know, we all know what ought to be, you know, why I ought to, you know, but that's my hang up was like, no, that guy should have behaved honorably and done the right thing. You know, he didn't. All right. So you saying that now is not going to change that outcome or the behavior. So it's wasted energy. Yeah. So just focus on the future, whatever it happens to be, you know. So that's my cross that I have to bear is the what ought to be's, you know. So, and I'm not perfect. No one's perfect. But you're pretty close. Do another 2 hours on all the things that I fuck up on. So, you know.
Oh no, we'll have like 10 hours for that.
That'll be our part 2, and you can write the theme song to that one.
Yeah,
it's the real Jeopardy.
Yeah.
Um,
Mark, is the Derek Smalls, is Rear View Mirror the title of the album or the song?
That's the title of the song, the first song they're releasing. I don't know.
Okay.
He's releasing these as a series of digital singles,
oh, good.
as opposed to a full album. He's doing these in a series. So
Okay.
eventually, I'm sure it'll become an album, but right now we're just doing those. So the next one, like I said, the debut one is called RVM, which is Rear View Mirror, which he's talking about, the Spinal Tap, going forward.
The breakup, I guess.
Yeah, right. The breakup. Yeah.
What have you got
What?
coming up that we should know about?
Well, a lot of stuff is out of town. I'm getting together with Eddie Jobson and with the band UK and going to Japan and then the cruise to the Edge next year doing that. And I've worked with Eddie on and off, and that music's wonderfully challenging and great. I've got a couple of tracks on the new Steve Porcaro album, which is called The Very Day, which is great. We worked on a big, long kind of a progressive piece that's just wonderful. He's just got you instantly know it's Stevie when you listen to it. He's got such a great signature with all of his music, and it was such a pleasure working with them for 6 seasons at Justified, and getting to know him, in so many different ways there. So that's coming out. The Derek Small stuff we mentioned. And again, with CTA and ctrl+z, that'll be coming out at some point here, in town. We've been in the East Coast. We've been to Europe this last summer, but we want to do some shows here in town. So we'll get to it.
Great. That's great. And we'll post a bunch of stuff on our website. And also you offer guitar lessons or music lessons. And
It's
we'll
all
put
part of the same thing. Yeah. I mean, it's guitar, but it's theory. I put in one book, I try to cut out all the fat that you don't need. The stuff that's just the practical knowledge. It gets pretty intense, but it's the things that I've thrown away so much more than I've kept. And I like to, this is kind of getting rid of all the clothes in your closet that you never wear. Or you go, oh shit, I forgot I had that. Well, you know what? I'm gonna wear that. I'm going to get rid of that. I obviously am not missing it. So, I'm down to a certain amount of shirts and pants, and I wear all that shit. So good. And it's a lot easier to get to them when I need them. That's what you want to do. You want to uncomplicate your brain when it comes to playing so that you can give that room to your heart and your hands. So
I love that. So we'll put all that stuff on our website. Mark, thank you so much for taking the time, and it's a pleasure to see you. I was always behind the scenes at the Mark and Brian Christmas shows and stuff, but I know we worked a lot. In fact, whatever strange reason is, when I went in to put your email address, it came up in my home computer. So I'm I'm not really sure why or how I would have it, but there it was. So.
Well, it was such a great experience working with you guys there and with Mark and Brian. The last time I saw Brian was at the Derek Smalls Change Tour. I don't know. I was playing. This was in Los Angeles, and that was in the Wiltern. And we're playing. I hear Marc Bonilla, and I'm like, oh fuck! I know who it was, And Derek is me, and he does a couple more things, and here it comes again, Marc Bonilla, and Derek's looking over and says, "Is that a friend of yours?" And I went, "I don't know." He said, "I'm trying to do a show here." I went, and then down to the front of the apron. Here's Brian. And Derek goes, "You want me to leave you two alone? What's going on down here?" That's the last time I saw him. I thought I'd see him upstairs after the show. Obviously, say, "Well, so catch me up on what's going on." He just came down. It was so wonderful to just see him, there. But he was at the show.
That's cool.
But that's the last time I spoke to him. It's funny.
Very cool. All right. Peace out to you, my friend. It's been a pleasure, really. Thanks for the time. I know your time's valuable.
My pleasure, and it's always wonderful seeing you guys and Rita seeing you again and all of that. It's great. I'm glad we're still in it. And that's the thing. It's kind of I always feel like we're like Steve McQueen in that fucking raft at the end of Papillon, where he's out in the middle of the Pacific going, "I'm still here, bastards."
I'm not dead yet.
I ain't dead yet, fucker. It's great. No, and that's it. It's all good.
And all the advice that you give throughout this the podcast is just great, just wonderful, and people need that.
Well, it's just things I've learned. If it can help somebody else or cut the path shorter.
Yeah, but be grateful, be blessed, and be thankful. Because life's pretty good. Thank you.
Talk to you later.
All right, peace out.
Man, that guy is busy. I can't believe how many cookie jars his hands and feet are in.
How did we even book him?
You did it, baby. You did it. I don't know.
Well, no,
he believes in you.
Teamwork, man. It's teamwork.
Yeah. Just incredible guy, incredible music. If you get a chance, just check out some of his music, and you can go to our website, which we'll give you in a little bit, where we put a lot of his music and things we talked about. You can get a lot of samples from our website. Marc has tons of upcoming projects, including live performances. The best thing to do is follow him on his website. It's Marc Bonilla, Bonilla music.com. Or you can follow him on Facebook at marc.bonilla.58 or Instagram Marc Bonilla 5555.
Check out our show notes on our website, rockandrollconfessional.rocks, ROCKS. There you can find links to some of the subjects talked about in today's show, like CW was mentioning, including links to Marc's website. You can obtain music lessons. My God, he even does music lessons.
Jeez.
Wow, he's like an Energizer bunny. Links to order his music, list of movies he's worked on, and many videos. Marc and his pals in concert. Great stuff.
Please support the podcast by subscribing wherever you can and write a review for us. We really appreciate it. I know many people go, I'm going to write a review. And then they forget to write a review. So this is your weekly, bi-weekly, monthly reminder. Please write a review. Also, follow and comment on Instagram, Facebook, and of course, YouTube. That's where we are.
Share our posts with your friends. That's it for this show. Keep rocking. CW, feel better. Everybody smile at one another, because it's that time of year where there's just so much going on in the world and people are stressed out. So be kind.
Yeah, it's the holidays, man. Get those presents early so you're not stressed out right before Christmas.
Oh, it's already started.
Buy your shit now, people. Buy your shit now.
Nobody's getting anything.
All right. Goodbye.